Tales of Herding Gods Episode 70. In the previous episode, after returning from his latest adventure, Qin Mu finds himself once again caught in the political and personal intrigues of the Imperial College. The newly appointed Grand Chancellor Gu Linuan, once the tutor of the Crown Prince, quickly becomes an enemy. His arrogance and old grudges make him determined to humiliate Qin Mu, but Qin Mu, ever calm and sharp-tongued, refuses to bow. Meanwhile, Prince Ling Yushu, aware of Gu Linuan's vindictive nature, decides to leave the capital for the borderlands, worried for his sister Ling Yushu, who insists on staying to cultivate under Chancellor Ba Shan. Back at the scholar's residence, Qin Mu's resourcefulness shines again when he turns dragon qilin's saliva into a miraculous healing potion, one so powerful it can even reattach severed limbs. The imperial physicians are stunned and secretly scheme to profit from his creation. But peace doesn't last long. On his way back, Qin Mu is confronted by Grand Chancellor Gu, who demands the return of a stolen treasure, only to be interrupted by Chancellor Ba Shan, whose terrifying presence forces Gu to retreat. As the tension fades, Qin Mu returns home, only to be met by an unexpected visitor. The one figure even Ba Shan and Gu Linuan must respect, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor himself. And the story continues. Qin Mu's mind trembled hugely as he walked into the courtyard, saying, "Imperial Preceptor didn't come over just to talk about interesting stuff? Linger, watch the tea." His little fox companion, Hu Linger, quickly reminded him that their house didn't even have tea, making the moment slightly awkward. But Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor only smiled, waving his hand and saying there was no need for formalities. He had merely come to speak a few words. Qin Mu studied the man closely. Though the Imperial Preceptor's appearance was unremarkable, there was something magnetic about him, a quiet majesty that deepened the longer one looked. His eyes shone with intelligence and calm authority, like they could see through the workings of heaven and earth. Qin Mu admired him deeply. This was the man who reformed the empire, established schools and colleges, unified the three great sects, and brought an age of learning and progress to eternal peace. Yet Qin Mu also knew that this brilliance was shadowed by ruthlessness. The Imperial Preceptor was capable of deception, bloodshed, and cold calculation. He had crushed opposition, manipulated rebellion, and sacrificed thousands for reform. He was a man of ideals, but also one of frightening determination. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but penetrating. He said he was surprised that Qin Mu, so young and so newly known as the sacred cult master of the heavenly saint cult, seemed utterly calm in his presence. Qin Mu answered evenly. There was no reason to panic. If the Imperial Preceptor wanted him dead, fear would not save him. And if he spared him, that was because killing him would only spark rebellion. "My death," Qin Mu said, "is not as valuable as my life. You have no need to kill me." The Imperial Preceptor's smile deepened. He praised Qin Mu's composure, but warned that cleverness could sometimes lead one astray. Then he asked why Qin Mu was so certain that his cult would never rebel against the empire. Qin Mu's answer came without hesitation, "Because our beliefs are the same. Your reforms and our teachings share one heart. Eternal peace is itself becoming a vast heavenly saint cult. Why would we rebel against ourselves?" Intrigued, the Imperial Preceptor leaned forward slightly. "Then tell me," he asked, "when will your cult rebel?" Qin Mu's gaze was steady. "When you betray the path of the saint," he said. "When your empire no longer follows that truth, heavenly saint cult will rise." The Imperial Preceptor's eyes flickered with surprise and admiration. "You have great courage," he said quietly. Qin Mu replied, "It is not courage, only honesty. You would know if I lied." Then the Imperial Preceptor revealed something unsettling. He admitted that, at first, he had intended to manipulate Qin Mu, to help him gain influence within the cult and use him as a tool. But he had changed his mind. "People like you," he said, "are dangerous. Those with their own thoughts are the hardest to control. Convincing such people takes more effort than killing them. Convincing an entire cult, harder still. But," he added, "our philosophies do not yet conflict. And that is fortunate." Qin Mu asked what would become of the Tao sect in the Great Thunderclap Monastery. The Imperial Preceptor's expression turned cold. That depends on whether they can live by their doctrines. He said, if they truly embody the principle of knowledge is action and action is knowledge, I will destroy them. If they fail to act upon their teachings, they can live. The words sent a chill through Qin Mu's heart. Here stood a man who respected truth only when it was alive in action, and who would annihilate even saints if they stood in his way. Curious, Qin Mu asked what the Imperial Preceptor's own philosophy was. The man only smiled faintly. You will know it through my actions. He said, that is knowledge as action. You still have a long road ahead, young cult master. The conversation ended, leaving the air heavy with tension. Qin Mu could not see through this man's mind. His knowledge, his foresight, his mastery of the Tao, all stood far beyond Qin Mu's reach. Yet one thing was clear. This man was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Qin Mu decided that for now, Heavenly Saint Cult would assist him in unifying the empire. But he had to be cautious. After your victory, he asked, will you destroy us? The Imperial Preceptor turned his head, eyes calm. I won't, he said. I need a sword hanging over my head, a power that reminds me not to falter. If I ever lose my Tao heart, I want you to be the one to strike me down. The declaration stunned Qin Mu. A man who sought his own restraint, a man who feared his own perfection, was no ordinary human. He isn't human, Qin Mu thought. He's beyond human desire. Perhaps a saint. When the Imperial Preceptor departed, the dragon Qilin murmured that though he could see the man, he could not sense his presence, as though the man had no weight in the world. Qin Mu regretted not using his heaven's eyes to see his true form. What kind of being would appear before him then? Outside, the Imperial Preceptor met his subordinate Qin Feiyue and spoke in riddles. He said the Grand Chancellor had chosen an excellent successor, but one too much like himself. I hate mirrors, he whispered. The me in the mirror is never as perfect as the me in my ideals. And with that, he vanished into the distance. Back at the scholar's residence, Qin Mu finally released a deep breath. The meeting had shaken him to his core, terrifying, yet inspiring. The Imperial Preceptor embodied a kind of heroism that stood above emotion. Above self, his very existence was a challenge to the limits of humanity. But Qin Mu, as the young sacred cult master, could only look upward for now. If he could not yet match that man's wisdom, he could at least refine his own path. He began to practice the unity technique, shaping it from the foundation of his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique and cross-referencing it with the great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. Hours passed as his understanding deepened and his movements grew more fluid. Then, with a breath of clarity, he moved, his pace quickened, his energy surged, and his body became light as wind. He raced through the mountain like lightning, his form flickering between shadows and light, his unity technique finally alive within him. His body flitted back and forth across the mountain like flickering light and passing shadows. And that wraps up this episode. In this part, we witnessed a truly profound and thought-provoking encounter between Qin Mu and the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, two figures who stand at the intersection of knowledge, faith, and power. What began as a quiet conversation in a modest courtyard slowly unfolded into a deep philosophical clash between two reformers who share the same dream yet walk vastly different paths to achieve it. Throughout the episode, the Imperial Preceptor revealed himself as a man of extraordinary intellect and chilling determination, someone who believes that true wisdom lies not in words but in deeds. His philosophy, knowledge is action and action is knowledge, challenges the notion that understanding can exist without practice. For him, ideas that cannot be lived out are meaningless, and ideals not carried into action are dead. He is willing to reshape the world, even through bloodshed and destruction, to make his beliefs real. Qin Mu, though far younger and less experienced, responded with remarkable calm and clarity. He demonstrated not only courage but a sharp awareness of the balance between power and morality. While he deeply admired the Imperial Preceptor's vision, he also saw the danger of it, the terrifying possibility of a man who acts without emotion, without desire, and without restraint. In the Imperial Preceptor, Qin Mu saw a person who might be beyond human, perhaps even saint-like, yet also capable of inhuman ruthlessness. The discussion between them exposed a fascinating truth. Both the Heavenly Saint cult and the Eternal Peace Empire strive for the same ideal, enlightenment and unity through education and reform. But while Qin Mu seeks harmony through faith and understanding, the Imperial Preceptor seeks perfection through control and discipline. Their mutual recognition of each other's power and intelligence created a moment of silent respect, even as each realized the other could one day become an enemy. Perhaps the most striking revelation of all came when the Imperial Preceptor admitted that he needed the Heavenly Saint cult to remain as a sword above his head, a reminder that he must never lose his Tao heart. It was a confession of humility within his own greatness, showing that even the strongest man understands the danger of absolute power. For Qin Mu, this encounter was both inspiring and haunting, forcing him to reflect on what kind of leader, and what kind of man, he himself would become. By the end of the episode, as Qin Mu practiced his unity technique under the moonlight, his movements reflected his growth and resolve. His body flowed like light and shadow across the mountain, a symbol of his determination to strengthen not only his skills but also his heart. The meeting with the Imperial Preceptor had left a lasting mark on him, a reminder that knowledge and action must exist together. And that ideals, no matter how noble, always carry a price. If you enjoyed this episode or found it meaningful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest episodes in Qin Mu's extraordinary journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode.